Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bolt Report. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is my good friend and co-host Michael Wax. Michael, hockey is back, and finally, I'm ready for the season to start. I know everybody is dealing with Hurricane Milton as of this recording. I'm just ready for hockey season to get back here and underway.
Yeah, this should be a really good season. Hopefully, a bounce back season for the Lightning. Hopefully, giving the fans a little bit of reprieve after the Hurricane Helene had hit and now Hurricane Milton. I feel really bad for you guys in Florida. Usually, I would experience this with you guys as well, but I don't live in Florida anymore. But as we get through the season and the early parts of the season, hopefully, the Lightning can give their fans a little bit of a way out of their current circumstances.
Yeah, let's have some fun. Forget about all the hurricane stuff right now and talk some Lightning hockey. It should be a fun episode. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to be looking at the overall season and our thoughts for the upcoming year, looking at projections, season, what the lines could look like, season point totals, all that kind of stuff. Should be a fun episode. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you're already here enjoying the episodes. We appreciate it. Why not? You're already coming back anyway. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. It should be another fun episode for you guys as we get set to go here. All right, starting off with just the season projection, kind of the outlook here. Michael, let me ask you this. How are you feeling heading into this season? A lot of new faces, a lot of different players. That was one of the themes for the Lightning in their media day, is saying that, listen, this is a different team. There's no way around it. Stamkos is not with us, obviously. He's probably the biggest name when you look at the team, the former captain, but it's a different team. There's a lot of new players like Jake Gensel, and it should be an exciting season.
Yeah, I think overall, and I said this a couple of times, whether it was over on our good friend RBLR Sports, which you're the host of, I said it over there a couple of times during the offseason shows. I think this team is going to end up being better simply because I think the defense is better, and that was the main complaint that we had during last season. Whether it was the system that Jeff Blashill had in place, whether it was the names that they had on the defensive side of things, there are a lot of new names now. And, we didn't see a lot of Mikhail Sergachev last year. The Lightning had to deal with not having him, and they're going to have to do that again, although this time it's a part of a trade. So they're bringing in J.J. Moser on the defensive end. They reacquired Ryan McDonough, which I think is a huge addition. Yeah, he's not as fast or as maybe mobile as he used to be, but he's still one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL. And then on the goaltending side of things, you're getting a healthy Andre Vasilevsky. As far as the forwards go, you lose Stamkos, you bring in Gensel. My big thing is you lost Anthony Duclair, and you really didn't bring anybody in to supplement the type of production that he had. So they might be worse on the defensive or on the offensive, side of things. But overall, I do think this team is going to be a lot better.
There's a lot of moving pieces for this team, right? I do think I agree with you that they definitely have potential to be better. Like, one of the biggest issues for the Lightning last year was their 5-on-5 play. And on paper, they should have improved that. Again, losing Stamkos, the whole thing, him being a captain, the way it happened, it's a bummer and unfortunate, and it's going to be a big loss. But specifically looking at the 5-on-5 play, Gensel should be a much better player in that category, which should help them. Now, that's all on paper, and you don't know how it's all going to play out once you see these guys actually on the ice. But theoretically that should be a place of improvement. You mentioned Andre Vasilevsky. He's not coming off an injury this time. He had a full training camp, so he should be much better, ready to go right out of the gate. That should help the Lightning. So there are a lot of things that should help. But the biggest thing that I worry about is this early part of the season for the Lightning, because, again, different pieces, different names, things are going to look a little weird. Can they build that chemistry quickly? Because sometimes these things can take time. Sometimes they don't, but a lot of the times when you have all these new players and new things going on, it can take a little time to build that chemistry. Can the Lightning do it quickly? If they can, I see no reason why they shouldn't be able to have a good season, which, by the way, the projected points totals for the Lightning right now when it comes to betting sites, right around 98.5, which is not too bad. That's about what they had last year. Is right around what you kind of expect for a team like the Lightning. So it seems like at least Vegas doesn't expect the Lightning to have a big drop-off.
I wouldn't expect that either. I do think the Lightning are in a weird sort of circumstance where, as you mentioned, because you attended media day, this team has said a lot that this team is different than they have been for basically the past 17 years, since or however long Steven Stamkos was a member of the Lightning, whether it was 16 or 17 years. It was a long time. And so not having that voice in the room is a very interesting challenge. They have a new captain in place in Victor Hedman, who uh, a lot of people around the NHL and a lot of people in that locker room respect. So you're bringing in, when you bring in new talent, someone that has uh, a respect for your captain already, which is a huge sign. It's not like a younger captain being thrust upon before you bring in your veteran type players and players during off-season moves. He was voted in unanimously by the Tampa Bay Lightning, which says a lot about his character. And I don't think we're going to get a lot of those fiery, throwing his stick all over the place and arguing with refs that you might get from other captains. He might do it once or twice. We've seen him do it, which is how he's really angry. Is he'll throw the stick or break it over the crossbar. But I do think with the increase in leadership for Hedman, the re-addition of Ryan McDonough, the increase in the defense and the goaltending, this team will be better than 98.5 points.
So you are taking the over on 98.5. Listen, I think this line is I think this is right where the Lightning are going to be at. Whether it's going to be very close to 98.5. So it's really tough to pick an over and under. Of course, I'm going with the over. I hope we hit 110 points this year. But I do think that's a tough line because I think they're going to be right around there. Again, a big part of that kind of depends on how the Lightning start the season. You mentioned Victor Hedman. He absolutely wears the Y really. I mean the C really well. He's a great captain. I'm sorry. I'm going to be doing those jokes all year long, so get used to it. I'm not a fan of the jersey ads, everybody knows. But anyway, yeah, Hedman's a great captain. He's a great pick. It was an obvious choice. It's nice that, as you kind of mentioned, it stinks to lose Stamkos, but at least they've got Hedman who can step up into that role. Ideally, very seamlessly is what you would expect there. Looking ahead here,
as long as they don't hit 128 points again, I am totally fine with whatever they do.
just
As
make
long
the
as they're in
postseason.
exactly.
Just make the postseason. That has always been the goal for the Lightning over the last couple of years. And we talked a lot about how this team is going to look different. Well, here's the kind of idea of what these lines could look like. Now, again, things are going to change throughout the start of the regular season. They're going to have to test a lot of things out. If you've watched any of the preseason games and even the practices, they've been trying all sorts of different things on the power play to try and mix things up there. We don't know what these things are going to look like, deeper into the season, but a general idea of what the lines could be, at least from practice. Now, this was without Jake Gensel. Isamont was on the first line. Expect Gensel to slot into that spot. So it'd be Gensel, Point, and Kucherov on the first line. Second line is Hagel, Sorelli, and Chafee. And then your third line, Geeky, Paul, and Atkinson. Fourth line, Gergensons, Glendening, and Sherry. On defense, it's Hedman and J.J. Moser, Ryan McDonough, and Eric Chernak. And then you got Emil Lilleberg and Nick Perbix, and Radish being the seventh defenseman. Michael, got to be honest, I kind of like these lines. I still think you're missing kind of that extra top six piece to really bolster, like you kind of mentioned, Duclair as the comparison from last year. But overall, not bad. That top line of Gensel, Point, and Kucherov is going to be dynamic. That's going to be a great line. Will they stay together throughout the entire season? Probably not. Cooper likes to mix those things up, but that should be a great line. By the way, Gensel is expected to start in the regular season here. Got banged up a little bit, but he should be okay.
Yeah, I do like these lines quite a bit. The fourth line, is the fourth line. I don't think you're going to get another career year out of Luke Glendening where he had 11 goals last year. It's probably just not going to happen, but he is a solid enough penalty killer, along with Zemgus Girgensons, to really help out with special teams rather than your 5-on-5 play. The line that has really been interesting to me is that third line of Connor Geeky, Nick Paul, and Cam Atkinson, because number one, Connor Geeky made the team. Like, a lot of people wanted him to make the team, but it has to be a give and take. You have to earn your way onto the roster, and there has to be the current circumstance for you to do so. So not only did he make the roster with his play throughout the rookie showcase and throughout the preseason, but the Lightning also are dealing with some injuries, and that opened the door for someone like Connor Geekie to make the roster. You combine that with a career year from Nick Paul last year, where he broke all sorts of his own records. Most of them were on the power play, but he did break these. A goal is a goal, as Jake Ricker likes to say. And Cam Atkinson, I saw a lot of people putting him on the second line. So him being on that third line, I think is really interesting. He might see maybe an increase in power play time now that he's going to see a decrease in 5-on-5 time. I do also suspect that him and Chafee will probably flip flop at some point in that middle six.
There's definitely going to be some line blender situations as Cooper
Yeah.
likes to do as they try to figure things out. That's just the way it is when you have a lot of different players. By the way, big congratulations to Connor Geekie on making the lineup. I know a lot of fans are very excited about him. He's obviously one of the top prospects the Lightning now have after that trade when they acquired him. And I'm excited to see what he can do. I'll also say this, listen, great job by Geeky to make the roster. You mentioned the circumstance and his great player two factors that led to him making the roster. But now he also has to keep this roster spot. Eastmont
Yep.
is the big player that is out right now. When he comes back, somebody's going to have to go out of the lineup and potentially be sent down. Now, who that's going to be, we don't know. It could be Connor Sherry. It could be Geeky if he's not playing well. There's a lot of factors in here. I hope Geeky really explodes out of the gate here and shows that I made the roster and this is why I made the roster. We're going to keep it up. Now I'm going to try to get up the line and get to the top line. That should be his mentality, and I think it is. But we'll see how Geeky plays here now that he'll be playing against full NHL teams in the regular season. But exciting to have him on the roster, ready to go. That's a good sign for the Lightning in that trade that they potentially have gotten a really good piece here. So that's good news for the Lightning.
Well, and another thing is that they don't necessarily have to send anybody down because Asamont is currently the extra. They have enough cap space to have an extra.
Correct.
So I think the main thing for Geeky in particular is not only keeping your spot, but also keeping your spot in that top nine, because we've seen this recently with the Lightning where players will make the team out of camp and immediately be put into that fourth line slot, and they don't have the opportunity to be able to make things happen. So they immediately get sent down. They get made a healthy scratch in particular. We saw it with Cole Koepke. We saw it with Walter Mirala. Connor Geeky cannot be that guy. He's got a higher ceiling than both of those two, but you can't treat him the same way. You have to let him fail. You have to let him grow. And hopefully there is no failure. Hopefully he succeeds right off the bat. But with a player as good as he can be, even in a third line position rather than a fourth line position, you're giving him more opportunities.
Looking ahead here for the Lightning and who may have their top seasons. Let's have some fun with this. We'd love to hear from our listeners and viewers as well. Let us know in the comments down below who you think are going to have the top seasons. And we'll be talking about some of the underrated players as well. But let's start with the top players. Obviously, you got your Nikita Kucherovs, your Jake Gensels, who are going to have standout years. Nikita Kucherov coming off one of the best seasons in NHL history. You expect him to be at that level once again. But Michael, who are you taking as a player that you think is going to have a really good year?
One of the best seasons in NHL history, but not only did he not win the Hart Trophy, he's number 7 on NHL Network's rankings. I'm never going to forget that. But
He won't either.
yeah, I don't think he cares about it, honestly. It's more for us. I do think, I projected him to hit 20 goals in our hot takes video, and he's playing in the top 6 already. I think Mitchell Chafee is going to have to be a make or break candidate for the Lightning, simply because, as I mentioned, Anthony Duclair is gone, and that is your top 6 guy that's going to hurt the most at 5-on-5. He was absolutely dominant with Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point during the trade deadline. And while he's now gone, you now have an extra slot to fill. Can Chafee do it? Yeah, he only had, I think it was 7 points in 30 games last year, but he looked really good. He was at times, and this does talk about not only his skill set, but how the Lightning were very up and down last year. Statistically, one of the better players in some of the games that the Lightning would play. He's going to have to be a guy that steps up. And then on the defensive end, I do think that the reemergence of Ryan McDonough playing with Eric Cernak is not only going to help Cernak really bounce back from a couple of lackluster seasons, but it's also going to really help the Lightning in a couple of circumstances with their new system, because technically it is still new with Jeff Blashill. He's going to be able to not only be someone that learns from it quickly, but might be able to teach it quickly as well. He's a very good teacher. He's someone that the Lightning probably should have never given away, but it happens because of cap circumstances. So I would say that Mitchell Chafee and Ryan McDonough are the two players on the roster that you really have to look at as basically your undervalued players.
Guys that I'm going with that I think are going to have a really good year this year is Brandon Hagel. He was one of my first projections when it came to the hot takes that he was going to have a good season, and he did. I love Brandon Hagel. I think he's kind of captain material one day down the road. But if Hagel can,
Who could have led you onto that? Certainly not me.
no, listen, Hagel is a very talented player. He's a great playmaker. He can score a lot of goals, and I think he's another guy that's gonna have to step. Everybody's got to step up to really fill that missing potential top six role. Jafe's definitely one of the big ones when you look at the underrated side, but I think Hagel's going to have a really good season, and I think he's going to be one of the top players for the Lightning. He fits really well into this system, and I'm excited to see what he can do this year. As he's now getting to become one of the more veteran guys on the team. Only been here a couple of years, 3 years now, I believe it's been. So, we'll see where he's at, but I think he's going to be a guy that has a top season. As for the underrated aspect of it, one guy I'd look to step up potentially here is JJ Moser. He's a guy that they acquired in the trades this year with the moves that they made in the offseason. And the Lightning need him to step up into a top six role. It's going to be interesting to see how he performs here. It's a guy we don't really know a ton about, but if he can be a top defensive prospect for the Lightning, that's going to be a big help when it comes to their defensive side, because that was a struggle for them sometimes last season was the defense. And if JJ can step up, that should help them out a lot this year.
When you mentioned already that in the practice lines, he's on the top pair with Victor Hedman. There's no one better to teach you than Victor Hedman. And Moser's only 24. Like, he's still got a lot of runway left. Could potentially be a very, very good addition for the Lightning. And someone playing on his offside, which we saw Sergachev do that. I don't think he did it particularly well when he did it. So if Moser can step into that role, that would be fantastic.
Let's take a look at special teams for the Lightning this year. This is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, Steven Stamkos was the go-to guy when it came to the slap shot in his office over there on the left circle. You do not have Stamkos anymore. Gensel is the expected guy to slot in for Stamkos, but Michael, the Lightning have been trying a lot of different things throughout the preseason here in training camp to try and find how they're going to work that power play. It's going to be a different look power play, and that was one of the best parts of the Lightning. They had a top power play all season long last year when it came to their power play percentage. Will they be able to do that again? It remains to be seen, but the question really is who slots in for Stamkos over there in his office.
It's going to be interesting because you mentioned Jake Gensel. I don't know if Gensel is going to be in that circle that Stamkos was in. I've seen Darren Radish playing on the top power play unit, but as you read through the lines, he'd actually be the odd man out of the lineup. So not only does that look weird on your power play one, but also you wouldn't have a quarterback on power play two. Something tells me that Cam Atkinson is going to, at some point this season, take that right-handed shot in the circle. Is he going to be as good as Stamkos? No. Stamkos is one of the best power play goal contributors of all time. But this could potentially be a career renaissance for Atkinson, who not only or not just 2 years ago had more than 50 points. So, you talk about undervalued players. I think at, at the power play, he could definitely be one of those guys that really steps up, especially when you talk about where guys are situated on the ice. Atkinson could be that guy in the Stamkos slot.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Atkinson can do. He's another. I don't want to compare him to Connor Sherry because I know people have a lot of bad outlooks when it comes to Connor Sherry, and they're very down on him. I hope Sherry has a bounce back year, but in the sense of he was kind of a low risk signing, high potential reward, right? Where his deal is actually way cheaper than Connor Sherry's was. I think the Lightning put a little more eggs into Sherry's basket than they did Atkinson's, but again, the point still stands. Atkinson was not signed for much. It's a short-term deal, and they're hoping that he can really bounce back, as you kind of mentioned. And I could definitely see him working out on the power play. You mentioned Radish, which the Lightning did try. I don't know if I really love that. Radish, yes, does have a powerful slap shot, and you can put him over there, but it's nowhere near the same. And I think Gensel will still get some time on the power play. Where exactly, I don't know. But you got to have another one of those, top tier guys. Because one thing that made the Lightning power play work so well is because you had Kucherov on one side, Stamkos on the other. You got to cover one of those guys, and it's really tough to cover them both at the same time.
And you
When
got
you have
Point in the
Radish,
middle, Point and the bumper slot.
yeah, exactly. So, but when if you have Radish out there on the right circle and Kucherov, you're going to lean more towards Kucherov. Nothing against Radish, it's just what you're going to do. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this. I think there's going to be a lot of trial and error. You're going to see a lot of different looks throughout the season until they find something that really does work.
So for example, if they don't have Radish on power play one, let's say they have him on power play two, he immediately becomes your quarterback. But again, in the lines that you just read, he would be the odd man out of the lineup entirely. Who do you think is going to take that over?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think again, there's going to be a lot of trial and error there where you figure out what it is. I don't know. JJ Moser played a lot of power play time. I don't think he has. So I wouldn't
Not
expect it to
sure.
be a guy like him. Maybe it's McDonough. Maybe you throw a Hedman McDonough combination out there. It's really hard to say because we didn't see a ton of different power play stuff. I mean, we saw a little bit throughout the preseason, but I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of trial and error. That's for sure. Like something you see in game one of the regular season, don't jump on it right away because I doubt it's something you see in game 3, 4, or 5 when it comes out to the regular season. There's going to be a lot of changes. It's just going to be who ends up working out the best, who has got that best chemistry.
Yeah, but that's no fun. We need to overreact to everything that we see on the ice.
Of course, well, that's what we're here for, and that's you're right. It is a lot more fun. I'll go with McDonough. I don't know. I think he could be a good quarter. When I think of quarterback, I think of this veteran guy that knows what's going on, knows how to direct traffic. So I'm going with McDonough. Why not? That would be fun. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. Last thing we're going to do here before you're ready to wrap things up, Michael, is kind of looking at the schedule outlook. We're not going to go through the whole schedule. I'll put up on screen here so it can kind of fly through a little bit. You can take a look at it. One of the big things to know, Michael, with this schedule is the Lightning are starting off with a back-to-back. Why are they starting off with a back-to-back to start the season? I don't know. It's against Carolina. They're going to be starting in Carolina on Friday, and they are supposed to come back home for their home opener on the 12th. However, with the hurricane situation right now, I don't know how that's all going to play out. We have to wait and see what's going to happen with the damage. Hopefully, it's not too serious, and hoping everybody stays safe. But it is something to kind of throw in the back of your mind because there is a scenario where the Lightning cannot play a home opener on October 12th if this hurricane does roll through Tampa Bay. So some interesting things to think about. Schedules generally pretty typical, but a bummer to have to start a back-to-back here to start the season.
Yeah, that's a really tough hand to be dealt to start the season. Getting a back-to-back in general, I'm a proponent of there never needs to be a back-to-back. So getting one to start the season is a really tough circumstance. And, they might not even play the back-to-back. They might, with the way that this hurricane is going about. I know we didn't really want to talk about the hurricane because everybody's trying to escape from it, but they might not play their home opener against Carolina, and who knows, they might not play their next home game, which is against the Vancouver Canucks on that Tuesday. So it's going to be a really difficult first stretch, I think. Not as difficult as some other teams have had recently with, arenas not being open on time. So they start basically a month on the road, things like that. But it is definitely a far more serious circumstance of everybody needing to be safe, everybody needing to be sheltered. And the last thing that they're probably going to think about is whether or not their hockey team is playing that night. So, early in the season, hopefully the Lightning are able to get off to a bit of a 500 or better start. We said the same thing last year with Jonas Johansson taking over for Andre Vasilevsky, and then hopefully they'll be able to hit their stretch run sometime in mid-November, going into December, when things are finally calmed down.
Yeah, the ideal scenario is this hurricane isn't as much of an issue. They can keep playing as normal, and there's no worries there. But you do have to keep it in the back of your mind. It's something to consider right now because there is potential for that. We don't know. We have to see how things play out here. But that could be a big factor for the Lightning early on in the season. I mentioned how important that early part of the season could be for the Lightning with all these new players and potentially dealing with where are they going to play at home. There's a lot of factors into that. The good news is for us, though, right now, we can just focus on, hey, Lightning hockey is going to be back. We're getting our first game on Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't forget to follow us at BoltReport_TV. We'll have all of your live season coverage back for the first time as we will live cover those games. And we'll have articles and videos, so much more fun stuff coming throughout the season. So don't forget to follow us on social media. Like and subscribe right here on YouTube so you don't miss out on future videos just like this one. But that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for all tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Go Bolts!